board and a couple other organizations that I've been involved in. So I'm sure I'll find plenty of things to do with my time.
Yeah.
Your husband with you and
Well,
make him hold down your hand so you don't volunteer for anything.
Yeah. I know,
Well,
Leona, that's gonna be hard to not to do. Problem with being retired, everyone thinks you have all the time in the world to do stuff.
You don't.
Jean, what year did you start with the commission?
1984.
wow.
Hey, guess who just walked in? Jerry Ritter.
It was the same year that Leona became commissioner.
Did you say that was the same year Leona became a commissioner?
Oh,
Right, Leona?
1984?
Yep.
Oh,
Good.
Paul, you got echo.
Yep.
Okay, there we go.
Well, Jean, you're going to be missed. I appreciate all you've done over all the years, and especially what you've done in Oneida County here over the last. I guess it's been 18 months to 2 years now. So, but we'll have an opportunity to celebrate and wish you a great retirement. But thank you so much for your service.
Thanks. Thank you, Jan.
Yeah.
So Jan, now that Jerry's here, do you want to?
Let's call the meeting to order. Hi, Jerry.
Hi, you have a nice square, Central Square and a few other areas.
Well, unfortunately, I was not able to attend. This year I've had with spring breaking so quick here. We had winter 3 weeks ago, and now we're into summer here. It's amazing that I've never had allergies this bad in the spring. And so rather than freaking you people out with drippy nose, I figured I'd better take one more meeting and do it remotely. And on a positive side, I get my last vaccine tomorrow. So hopefully next month that we should be hopefully back to somewhat normal for me attending meetings and that type of thing. But I'm glad you can make it, Jerry.
Well, I'm sorry I'm late, but
I was late also. But we'll call the meeting to order. And in your email, Katie had sent out a proposed agenda for today's meeting. I hope everyone had an opportunity to look at that. There's no questions on it, so I have a motion to accept the agenda, proposed agenda.
I so move.
I second.
Do we have a second?
Leona.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
I'm sorry,
I
was
heard
that
five.
Mike? Was that Mike and Leona?
Yes. It was.
Maybe,
What
I
sounded
think, can I just interrupt a minute? Maybe what you can do, because I can't see you and it's muffled, maybe identify yourself when you're going to make a motion first.
You don't have a speaker.
It's okay. She's got
That
a
microphone
dish
is
over there.
picking you up
She
pretty
has a
good.
dish.
Okay. Everybody ready?
We're ready.
Okay. Also, in the email that Katie had sent out, there was last month's minutes, proposed minutes. If there's no questions or comments on the March meeting's minutes, do I have a motion to accept those minutes as proposed?
Tom moves to accept.
I'll second.
Do I have a second?
Jerry
Jerry.
seconded.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Tom and Jerry.
Oh, it sounds like everybody, I heard a bunch of voices. I think we're good on that. Okay. If we could, we'll just one item here. Lee has graciously accepted to represent as our counsel for another year. I believe, do you have a copy of the contract with you, Katie?
I believe I do, yes.
Okay, all right. Again, we will, the fee is $3,500 for to represent us for the next year. If there's no comments or questions on that, do I have a motion to accept giving Lee the opportunity to represent us as our counsel for another 12 months.
I make that, Mike, here, I make that motion, Jan.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Jerry,
5 seconds.
Go ahead.
Heard Jerry. All those in favor?
aye.
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 I think I heard 5 voices there. Good. Lee, thank you so much for sticking around for another year. I appreciate your service to us.
Thank you, sir. I wouldn't miss it.
Now, I don't see you, so I'm not quite sure if you're in some exotic place today. Are you home again or no?
No, I'm just here waiting for the snow.
Go on his explorations too.
Good. Okay, let's move right into the executive director report.
So I won't repeat what I've already said. But basically
No worries, no worries.
Just a reminder to everyone on the nominations to our community recognition program that we're starting this year, to be announced at the annual meeting in October. Nominations are due to me by June 1st. We had an article in the Tug Hill Times once. We'll do it again this week. I need to put a press release out as well, and I believe the circuit riders are all sharing that at their meetings. So there's a document on our website, and there's a Google form to fill out, or we can provide paper copies of the form. It'd be nice to have a good selection of nominations to choose from. So just a reminder on that. Let me see my next thing. So the next,
Jerry, that paper is over the speaker.
so moving to regional projects. First, I wanted to ask Jen if she would like to give us a update on the upcoming training sessions for the rest of the spring. And Jen, do you need to share your screen?
Unless I need everybody, well, yeah, let me share the screen.
There you go. You're a co-host now.
Mhm. So this is as of just last week, we were updating these. Thank you to everybody in the office, Carla and Elena and Jean and Matt, everybody working so hard to get these scheduled. You can see we start in May. These are listed for May and June. We have like a 3-part series in broadband. We have Elena working on her series on the Underground Railroad activity. This one here, this ice and snow best practices, is actually part of the Black River Watershed Conference, which I'll show you next. But it's, applicable to, all the audiences here. Our very own Matt Johnson doing a comprehensive planning training, regulating short-term rentals, and then I will show you, oops, if I can get through here. Yeah. I will show you what we're working on for the Black River Watershed Conference, which we're hosting virtually with the Soil and Water Conservation Districts. We have Black River Watershed Wednesday webinars. There's a mouthful. And I think we have 7 set up for, or in the process of setting up those for. So stuff to look forward to. Lots of stuff going in Tug Hill Times this week. So stay tuned.
So,
for future, we're working in the hopper. We have constable folks are ready to do a couple more webinars, possibly late in the fall. And I know Katie and I and Elena are working hard on getting another 1 or 2 or maybe 3 more historical series going too. Katie and I have a field trip Wednesday to try to work that out, and lots of stuff in the works.
and just so everyone's clear, all these are still being planned as virtual. We aren't trying to pivot to the hybrid workshop yet. We will need to talk about that. Our experience last fall with trying to do hybrid workshops was that very few people showed up in person and most people were online. And so we're kind of waiting and, to move to that again. I think hopefully we can do that in the fall. But, you know, that remains to be seen. Hopefully things will continue to be on the upward trend that they're already at. And I welcome feedback from any of you on, you know, what you think we should be doing. But for the spring, we're sticking with the online workshops only. Thanks, Jen. So I'm also going to turn it over to staff, Elena and Carla, to give a update on the broadband efforts that we've been undertaking for the last several months.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Lovely. All right, we'll switch out of this beautiful map and into the presentation. Hiding my control panels real quick so I can. There we go. All right. So as Katie said, there's been a lot of forward momentum on this broadband project. There's a lot of updates to give you guys. First and foremost, we really got the region working at 3 different levels. We've got the North Country, we've got Central New York, and then Oneida and Herkimer in the Mohawk Valley. And though all of those are, we have regional partners in each of those areas who are working with ECC technologies, but we do have meetings where we all get together and touch base and give each other updates and see how we can collaborate moving forward. So focusing in on the North Country, we've got Jefferson, Lewis, and St. Lawrence who are part of that effort with ECC Technologies and the Development Authority of the North Country. Lewis County, I'll start with them because they were the first to start their broadband inventory, both the actual infrastructure inventory that they were doing and the broadband survey. And they have completed both of those efforts. And the Development Authority, I believe it was last week, gave a presentation to the Lewis County legislators with all of the results from the studies with ECC Technologies. And since then, Lewis County has formed a legislative broadband committee, and they're seeing how they want to move forward to broaden their expansion efforts. So Jefferson and St. Lawrence have both gotten their broadband survey out to the public. I heard, according to the Development Authority, Jefferson County, they're still hoping to get a little bit better response rate. So I believe that survey is still live. The same goes for St. Lawrence. They're hoping to get a little bit better response rate before they close that survey. And in both cases, they're hoping to get those surveys done and final reports done by the end of the month. So that's really coming along. And as for their the infrastructure, I believe that's also been complete in both counties, but I don't believe I have confirmation on that.
And Elaine, if I could just interrupt for a second. I have a printed copy of the Lewis County report here in the room, so people can see what the product of that is. And it is pretty, I read it, I read most of it this morning, and it is pretty detailed. And I think it is going to be very useful information. It's a lot of technical information, which you need because you got to figure out how you're going to improve broadband in the areas where you don't have it. But just to be clear, there's 2 elements to all of these county efforts. There's the riding the roads, inventorying the actual physical infrastructure, and then there's a survey of residents and business.
Thanks, Katie.
Brought together into some mapping, into some recommendations moving forward to grant funding to the American Recovery Plan money, whatever is going to fund the actual, you know, improvements later on. So sorry, go ahead, Elaine. I just wanted to make that clear.
Oh, thanks, Katie. Central New York, we've got Oswego, Onondaga, Cortland, and Cayuga. And Oswego and Onondaga have completed their inventory, and they are waiting to, actually all 4 counties are waiting to launch their broadband survey at the end of this month. Cortland and Cayuga are hoping to get their infrastructure inventory done by the end of the month. So a lot going on there too. And our main partner there is the Central New York Regional Planning Development Board. And then Oneida and Herkimer, luckily we got them, well, not necessarily we, there was a big regional effort to get them on board too with the broadband efforts. And so Oneida and Herkimer are working together with Mohawk Valley Economic Development District and the planning department for the counties. And we had a kickoff meeting on March 30th. And I guess something interesting about these two counties is that the commission's been invited to be a part of those weekly meetings where we get to see the progress in the project. So right now, the inventory is going to be underway and complete in Herkimer by the end of May and in Oneida by the end of June. And the survey should be launched on the 3rd of May. That's at least the projected date as of right now. And we're hoping to have the whole project, both the infrastructure and the inventory, complete by August.
And
was that you, Katie?
Yeah, you're freezing.
Keep freezing up, Katie.
Yeah, Katie, we're not hearing you.
can you hear me okay though?
Now we can, yes.
Okay. The interesting thing there is that some money was put into the effort by the Northern Oneida County Council of Governments. So they have like a actual, some skin in the game of that one. So I think that's important to know. And when these other two surveys go live, so Oneida and Oswego, we're going to need everyone to be helping us get the word out to get as many responses as possible.
Absolutely.
If I could just add about Herkimer County, the town of Webb, which is mostly Old Forge, has been really doing a lot on their own. There's a huge problem up there with broadband, and I don't know how much outreach they've received from county planning. They seem to be kind of off by themselves, and the large concentration of population is more like Herkimer, Ilion, Little Falls, Frankfort, Schuyler, that area. But they have been actually receiving bids for updating their broadband in that area separately. So
we'll have to make sure they're looped in then.
Yes.
Yeah. Definitely.
We seem to be a little early in the process here yet, but Elena, do you see any huge holes in broadband service across our councils of government in their areas?
Can you repeat that question, Jan?
Yeah, I'm just curious. I know we're early in the survey, but I'm just, at this point, do you see any large gaps in broadband service across our service area?
Well, the only results that have come out are Lewis County at this point. So any sort of gaps that we'd be able to identify would be there at this point in time, until the rest of the data is shared publicly. And actually really interesting, kind of the second point we're going to get into is going to talk about this. But Katie and Carla, I'm not sure if you guys had a chance to look at some of those maps. I believe I've got them on my computer, so I can show some of the maps from Lewis County if that would be interesting.
I will.
I wouldn't be able to see them, but I'm curious.
Oh.
Yeah, that's right. You're on the phone. There is yeah, Jan, you've got a problem. We should be documenting this.
Make sure and fill out the survey.
No, it's his computer this morning. In reading the report this morning, there are definitely gaps in Lewis County. Pinckney, Harrisburg, parts of Osceola pop out as, and then there was some on the Adirondack side of Lewis County too. The Route 12 corridor is pretty well covered, as you would kind of imagine naturally. But the farther you get from there, there were definitely gaps, if I remember correctly from the maps I read this morning.
Yeah. You know, I had that opportunity. We finally got the high-speed internet Frontier installed last week. It was Monday of last week. It was a long time coming. They spent a better part of last summer hanging fiber optics on all of the National Grid power poles. I guess they bought an easement for National Grid. So unfortunately, in this neck of the woods, a lot of the poles were pre-1950, so they had to invest in replacing the poles to make them taller. You know, basically, you've got two wires that run on a pole. You've got power and neutral, and you got to be at least 6 feet away from those. So they, and a lot of poles they had were very, very short, so they would have been hanging in the road. But they did a heck of a job. I had an opportunity to talk to a representative, not a sales representative, but an operations representative in Southern California with Frontier, and I asked him, you know, of all the places in the world, you're, you know, one of the smallest towns in the state of New York, rural state of New York, you're hanging high-speed internet on every pole. And the response came back was, this was a grant that the Fed made available in 2015. And it wasn't very soon after that, as you're aware, Frontier went bankrupt.
Right.
So the Fed decided not to give them the money until they were well on their way out of bankruptcy. And that was last summer. So that's when the money was released. He also said that the infrastructure for Frontier is the same as Verizon. So he says that Verizon has had the money from 2015 to do Harrisburg and Pinckney, but they decided not to do it and improve the infrastructure until Frontier was on board. Because I guess, believe it or not, the lines go to the same place. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see, at least in Lewis County, how quickly we can be on board with broadband, especially in these rural areas.
Absolutely. And it's interesting too that you bring up Frontier, because the next something that we're working on with all of our partners across the whole 9-county region is a regional map. So the commission, this is really new information as of, I believe it was 2 Fridays ago. All of the partners were together in a call. Dink wasn't able to be on that call though, so we still have to work with them. But the commission is going to be hosting a regional broadband map, which is going to have all the data that's shown on the screen on the right-hand side, and I will read them off for you, Jan. We've got 911 address points that'll be on that map. We'll have all of the RDOF auction winning bidders, which is by census block for the census blocks that were won by different internet service providers. We'll have some broadband from the survey, some of those survey results aggregated either to municipality or census block in a way that doesn't, that protects privacy and confidentiality. And we'll have the broadband infrastructure, all of those data uploaded into that same regional map. And so then also some census data. So just things like a number of households by census block, population, income, and a couple other indicators that'll really be more just for, we're not talking about correlation here, but we're looking at, you know, just people being able to see a comparison and where the infrastructure is in relation to where the households are and the income. So I will actually switch screens to show you what this regional map could look like, or it's still in the process of being made right now. But it's going to be a web portal, which will be public facing. And then we'll also have something called a web mapping service and a web feature service, which is going to be for our partners to be able to pull that data into their own GIS. And they can do.
I'm sorry, we don't see the map on this end. Maybe it's.
I haven't switched it yet.
Oh, you haven't switched. Okay, sorry. I thought you did.
No, but I'm just kind of highlighting what's on the left part of the screen right now, that we've got those 2 different aspects of this regional map that's going to be products of this effort. So here now I will switch. All right. We'll go back here. Okay. So this is just a quick snapshot. This is really the internal view of the map. It hasn't gone public facing yet, but this is more or less what it'll look like, and people will see in the feature list and the layer list all of the different folders where they could see the RDOF data, the census data, broadband infrastructure data, the 911 address, and zoom in on any part of the 9-county region, and we'll be able to kind of get a snapshot of where the gaps are and where the need is. So, I mean, for instance, I'm in Lewis County here. I just clicked on one of these census blocks and it's showing me the information for that census block. So right now what we've got visible is the RDOF, but again, this will all be manipulable for the public and for our county and municipal partners. And we'll switch.
Elena, I have a question. This is Jerry.
Oh, hey,
Hi. Are the schools having any input on that? I mean, they're kind of, we're hearing a lot from families who haven't been able to participate in virtual learning because of broadband issues. I live in Adirondack District. I know that the school did purchase some hotspots for kids, but I know that some are still struggling. They may have broadband, but not the latest versions, or only maybe 1 or 2 devices can be used at a time. So I was just wondering if the schools have participated in this at all.
Yeah, 2 thoughts on that. The first would be that the broadband adoption that you probably saw in the presentation, the acronym BAT, B-A-A-T. It's the Broadband Affordability and Adoption Tool. And what that essentially is just an online survey. And I believe they do make paper surveys available. So within that, they do ask some questions related to the speed, how many devices can you get connected? So things that are important for education in the home, virtual education at home. I would say that with regards to reaching out to some different school districts, that's something that's part of the distribution plan for when we're getting that survey out to the public and trying to collect responses. So especially now that we're working really closely in Herkimer and Oneida, I would say that we're going to want to reconnect with some of our school district contacts to make sure that the households that really need to take this survey are taking it. And the second thing I'll add is that Carla made some really great contacts with the school districts at the beginning of all of this process last summer. So maybe that'll be another avenue that we can reach out to make sure that people are filling out the survey and collecting as much data we can get.
Thank you.
Yeah. And
the ultimate goal, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Jen.
No, so the ultimate goal here is that, once we determine all of these data points here, as far as if you look at strictly fiber optics broadband service, I would assume there's probably 4 providers in our 6-county area, 7-county area. I would say Spectrum. I would think Verizon, and then you've got a sub chapter of Verizon, which is still AT&T, and then you're going to have Frontier. So the ultimate goal here is ultimately to try to work at some level with those companies to expand service, correct?
Yeah, you also have the satellite providers, which, that can be a little controversial because they can't always provide the up and download speeds that technically meet the definition of high-speed broadband. You've got the Usenets of the world. You got SpaceX that's becoming a player. They won some of this recent money, and it kind of raised my eyebrows. But I don't know. And you'll see that a lot of that is really well covered in this Lewis County report from ECC. So as soon as that becomes publicly available, and I have a copy, I'm hoping they're planning to put this on their website. I can share it with you, Jan, because it talks about exactly what you're asking. And then it also talks about how we can use this information moving forward for future grant opportunities. There's a lot, as we all know, there's a lot of money out there.
You froze again, Katie.
Yeah.
Right now.
Well, from my experience, satellite does not qualify.
Yeah.
It just doesn't.
Okay.
I agree. I think the timing is perfect for this, though. And in talking to, with especially with Frontier, there is a lot of money that is that's going to start flowing their way. And I would think, if you really look at the core area of Tug Hill, especially where we have power, where we have national grid service. This money is trickling to them right now, and the biggest thing is that the Fed did not want to give them the money until until they were well out of their way out of bankruptcy. And then the other thing is that National Grid did not want to give Frontier any easements until they were sure they were going to get paid for those easements on those poles. So my understanding is that easements have been satisfied anywhere there's a national grid power pole on the core forest. Right now, Frontier, because I would say probably 80% of the service area is covered by Frontier, especially up here. I'm being told that they're planning on hanging fiber optics, and that's a great thing. So that'll really introduce fiber optics into the core area. On the other side of the coin, I think if you look around Boonville, if you look around Camden, they'll probably, as they expand service, because there's going to be multiple providers there, you're going to probably see something called competition happen in those areas.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So this is really a good timing for this.
Thanks, Jan. The last thing we'll share with you is a training series that we're working on. Carla, I'm going to share the flyer you put together.
Oh, thank you. Okay. So as Elena presented, fostering these collaborations has been key to our work. And we know that these relationships, including the ongoing communication with the state's innovation and broadband office, work with our regional partners, some of whom offer, as Katie said, the broadband infrastructure and technical support, like DANK, as part of their programming, and others that are their region's economic development districts that make them the conduits for federal funding and are also skilled at managing complex regional projects. And on the local level, ground up efforts that know the conditions that exist in their own communities better than anyone. So we've learned that all levels of the governance and expertise working together are likely what it's going to take to expand high-speed internet to more households. So we've been receiving some questions about the process and what's going on, what's the broadband climate landscape in the state. So what are technical solutions? What can we do? So we decided that a workshop would respond to the questions from our communities about the process. And this morphed into a 3-part series so far. So we wanted to corral the information and best practices that we've learned and are available out there to explain the process. So as Jen said, the 3-part series begins on May 12th with Scott Rasmussen of the Innovation and Broadband Office of Empire State Development to present a landscape view of broadband across the state. I haven't received his presentation description yet, so to know more about the direction of his talk, but interestingly, lately we're seeing announcements about the affordability, the $15 broadband for low-income households, and I hope that this office will use this kind of low-risk webinar to training opportunity to roll out more information about the program. So we've asked him to overview the state's initiative since 2015 and talk about the general process of getting broadband internet service providers to unserved and underserved areas. So including relevant state studies, initiatives, or programming that may be on the horizon. So it's including any message that he'd like to deliver regarding the governor's connectivity agenda and affordability. So see, right? So I've also asked that he address how our efforts will contribute to the state's initiative and offer opportunities to work together to meet the shared goals. So first up in the series is the state level perspective. And this, I think it's going to be really interesting, and I hope you all tune in. The second webinar in the series is ECC Technologies on May 19th, presenting on the Southern Tier Network and also the work they're doing in our 9-county collaborative. This session will lay out the process for measuring the conditions, the research, the citizen survey and outreach, and the infrastructure inventory and mapping, and give us a walkthrough of the Southern Tier Network success and the status of our 9-county project. And then the third webinar on June 16th is titled Technical Solutions and Things to Consider for Broadband Expansion. And that's with the Development Authority of the North Country's Dave Wolf, who will discuss their on-the-ground experiences with Tupper Lake and other area projects. So that's our lineup. And if you have any concerns, questions, suggestions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks for listening to us today. We're looking forward to this.
Carla, there's
Questions.
a,
Go ahead, Jerry.
okay. Who is this, who can watch or participate in this series? Is it open to just residents, or anybody can tune in?
Yeah, the initial intended offices, we were getting questions from the county level. So it's from county planners, local leaders, chief electeds, their staff, general public, practitioners, people concerned with or wanting to learn more about funding, the general process, pretty much anybody. So I think.
Okay, so it's open to the public.
Yeah,
okay.
It is. So we'll manage the workshops a little bit differently. We have to, in order to get the higher overarching state level perspective, we have to have prepared questions for them so they know what to expect. And that's really the only difference. So, but no, anybody can participate and anybody can ask questions, just in different methods.
Is the Lewis County survey all done now? That's completed.
Mm-hmm.
So where will the Oswego County surveys be?
There will be a website that's going to be announced April 30th, and that's where you'll have to click to fill out the Oswego County survey.
Okay.
And those are the links we'll get out to everybody as soon as we get them. First, we go in Oneida.
Okay, good. I'm glad Oneida County's finally caught up.
It was a challenge, but it happened, so all good. Any other questions?
Very good, Elena. Thank you.
Yes, thank you both.
Sorry for my really poor camera skills here. Thanks, guys. Moving forward in the agenda, minimum maintenance roads should have a meeting with Griffo and or his staff this week. Tim Hunt, the Lewis County Highway Superintendent, is going to join me at that meeting to talk about the proposed bill edits that we have written based on the feedback we've gotten from stakeholders, as well as the November 20th Supreme Appellate Court case that weighed in on some of what we were talking about. So stay tuned for that, and we'll see what the way forward is after that meeting. Solar continues to be taking up a lot of staff time as well. Matt is going to be presenting at an Oswego County Cooperative Extension virtual workshop that they're holding in May to really kind of target the farming community about solar, because that's where we're seeing a lot of the impacts, so to say. So Matt will be presenting there. Also, I've been asked to present at the New York Planning Federation. They're doing a series of solar workshops in June. And Matt's going to join me on that, talking kind of from our experience and perspective on solar, given that we've kind of been in the weeds on this for a while. We've also been asked, and Matt attended the first meeting of a NYSERDA Ag Technical Working Group. I think that was on Friday, was their kickoff meeting. And Matt, I don't know, did you want to say anything about that?
Yes, it's the technical working group for agriculture and solar, kind of put together by NYSERDA. And there are about 15 members from different planning entities and farm lobby entities and other DEC entities. And the kickoff meeting was Friday, and we're going to meet quarterly. And the idea is just to come up with some better ideas about how to balance ag protection and the clean energy goals of New York State. So we'll stay tuned. We'll keep everybody posted on that.
We're running out of power.
Oh. Paul, do you have a charger for that laptop? Okay. Related to solar, the climate action, I've got a, I've got an extension over here. The Climate Action Council is in the process of listening to all the advisory panel recommendations that have been ongoing for the last few months. I know they heard several recommendations in April, and they're meeting again in May to hear the remaining recommendations. The Land Use and Local Government panel, which I've been sitting on, is presenting in May. So that's kind of related to the solar. Obviously, the state's climate goals and carbon reduction goals tie to the need to increase the amount of solar installed in the state. So we'll see how all that comes out. There's a lot of lofty goals and a lot of price tags, and I'm not sure how that's all going to unfold. Should be interesting. The Climate Action Council has hired an executive director, just happened a couple weeks ago. So they're getting ready to, I think, hit the ground running once they decide which of the recommendations they're going to take on. So a couple of new things. Marijuana that was passed and signed into law. I have some information on that. We're all still trying to get our heads around what that's going to mean for our communities. I'm not finding it right now, but there is a local opt-out provision in the law. It has to be adopted. They have to be opted out by the end of the year. If you don't opt out before the end of the year, you can't opt out. If you do opt out, you can opt in at a later date. There's a lot of detail around the tax structure. There is some tax that will come back to the local municipalities. We are frankly fielding a lot of questions on that right now. And so we're gonna probably put together a little fact sheet or an issue paper, mini issue paper, to kind of collect all of the answers that we are figuring out into one document. The Association of Towns did a nice webinar on it a couple weeks ago. I've had some other summaries from other sources sent to me and distributed to staff. But this is, I know it's been in the works for a long time, but now that we finally have a law, everyone's trying to scramble to figure out what exactly everything means. On top of that, we also have the American Rescue Plan, I believe is what it's called. I'm sorry, recovery plan from the federal government. Lots of questions on that too. Communities are all scheduled to receive significant amounts of money, and those amounts are available online pretty much. It's hard to tell how much is going to go. So there's a town figure, and the village figure is included in the town figure, and so that distinction has not been revealed yet. And the rules around how that's going to be spent aren't clear yet. So the Office of the Treasury Department is supposed to be coming up with rules, but in general, that money can be spent on COVID-related efforts, infrastructure like sewer, water, broadband, a couple other things that I can't remember off the top of my head, and I can't find my paper because I'm totally disorganized this morning. So again, we're just getting a lot of questions, and we have those numbers if anybody wonders what their community's numbers are. And I'd be happy to take any questions at this point. That's the end of my executive director's report.
Katie,
Yep.
in regards to the distribution of the federal funds, right now, our representative from the county, Terry Wilbur, he's been negotiating with all the counties throughout the state of New York. And really, the finance of what you can use for it has not been settled as of yet. That we're waiting for the federal treasury people to kind of finalize everything, but there's a lot of rumors out there what you can, but you can't do it, but actually it has not been settled. How it's going to be handled, or how it's going to be distributed. Distributed, yes, we know what that is, but how you can use it is another question. So that's still up in the air. So there's a lot of rumors of what you can spend and stuff for right now, but it has not been finalized. Maybe in a couple of weeks.
So you don't know if it can be money used for costs already incurred, like in the past year, or going forward? We don't know. Okay.
No.
It's hard to say.
Our representative from the county on this whole thing, all the counties in the state are working on it. He's trying to make it as flexible as possible. But I think some of the things, highway people think they can use a lot there. They don't know for sure, but they should know soon.
It's also going to come in 2 installments, is my understanding. Like there's a big chunk, but it's not, you're not going to get all in 1 year. It's going to be year 1, year 2.
May 10th being the first payment, I believe.
Oh, and Sandra's saying that May 10th is the first payment that she's heard. So that's coming up pretty fast. What I would like to do once there's some clarity is try to either put together our own workshop on this or highly promote someone else's workshop, because there's a lot of questions, and maybe Association of Towns, maybe NICOM will put on some workshops, county highway, or county, it's the county treasurers or association or somebody, because there's a lot of questions, and it's circuit riders are running into it at all the town and village board meetings.
And it's just been they've been negotiating on this for a month more. So it's one of those federal things, it's questionable. And also the totals for the village, the towns, the villages, like it's part of the town's
It's
sum.
included in,
So, I think it's going to be kind of based on population density. I think that's going to be.
That's what I heard as well, exactly.
Okay.
And, because
It will go to
sometimes,
the town and then divvy to the
because
village, so
some,
if the village has more population than the town, the
exactly.
village will get more money than the town.
But like in my communities I represent, the town is Sandy Creek, but the 2 villages, they don't maintain their streets or anything like that. It's all through the town itself. So you think, I think it's gonna be based on needs and stuff like that too. So
Yeah. We're following it closely, just
Yeah.
because we're engineers for the water, sewer infrastructure. things like that.
Yeah, people are looking at it, I know, as an opportunity to do some sewer and water projects in some communities.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Sandy Creek's dealing with that. Sandy Creek is right now big time. And also trying to work with the DOT and the DEC. Sometimes not very successful, but
Collaboration.
So that's it for my report, Jan.
Good, thanks, Katie. Paul, Council of Government report?
Oh, thank you. We have Mayor Randy here today, Randy House from Central Square. If Randy would care to touch on what's new and exciting in Central Square, I can continue from there for North Shore and Seven Rivers.
Well, this is my first meeting that I've attended with the Tug Hill folks, and we're all concerned about the recovery plan and where the money's going and what we can use it for. We've currently going through a sewer plant upgrade and certainly could use any funds for that. But I also know the town is going through their sewer upgrades and they could use money for that. And then there's always money in improvements in roads. So we'll wait to see what the rules and regulations are before anybody really spends any of their own money.
Yeah, sure.
So we're all kind of waiting, holding our breath, say, you know, how they say they're gonna help us. We're just gonna wait and see what they actually are gonna allow us to do and what the installments are and how many fingers are gonna be in the pie. Pretty much the nuts and bolts of it.
And beyond that, in North Shore and Salmon Rivers, West Monroe is working on updating their land use controls. They're reviewing their zoning and their subdivision regulations. Constantia has had a change in planning board chairman, and they're looking at updating their comprehensive plan as well, in addition to have some project reviews going on. I don't know whether this happened since the last commission meeting. Parish had a referendum on authorizing a higher expenditure limit on their proposed water system, and that was defeated. So they're figuring out how to proceed on that now, if they can proceed under their current authorization or what their options might be. And Amboy is, they completed their comprehensive plan update. And beyond that, let's see, Orwell, I think, is working on a project to improve their water system because they've had a problem with insufficiency in the last several years. So they're working along with Barton and the Judas to figure out what they can do to improve that situation. And that's pretty much what's happening in the area.
Thanks, Paul.
Any questions or comments?
One thing I forgot to mention earlier, Jan, was that we did just update our COVID FAQ that we've been trying to keep up to date periodically throughout this time. There were quite a few changes. There's been a lot of change in relation to travel quarantines. There really is no travel quarantine anymore. Obviously, the remote meetings continues to be extended, but it continues to be extended at a really odd time interval. It's like it's only extended for 2 weeks at a time, which is frankly annoying because it's hard to kind of plan on a monthly basis for board meetings.
Yep.
So yeah, so I just want to make it clear, make sure everyone knew that's up on our website now too.
Good. Okay, thank you. In early April, I'm sure you're all aware, the New York State budget was finally voted on. It was voted in. And it looks like that our budget numbers for the commission will remain the same as last fiscal year. So that's definitely good news. Katie, you want to kind of go through the finance report?
Sure. You've got the April 15th finance report in front of you if you're here in the room, and it was on your email. Not a lot to highlight other than at the last commission meeting, you were generously allocated $10,000 towards some computer expenses. We were able to make a few purchases out of that, but we have to go through the whole state contract process and try to, get computers off state contract, which requires us working with different computer company representatives to get us quotes. And the timing just didn't work out very well. They took forever to get us quotes, frankly. So we weren't able to make the purchases as expensively as we had hoped to position ourselves for some improved technology, but you'll see in the upcoming proposed budget for 2021-2022, we are still proposing to have a significant amount of money allocated for that, so we can continue to keep up with technology, especially in this. I think we'll be doing hybrid forever now, and so we need to have the equipment in order to do that well. So, but as far as the finance statement, I don't think there's anything out of line. Felicia, did you want to make any comments on it?
No, I don't have it pulled up in front of me, but if anybody has any questions, feel free to
ask away. Thank you.
Good. Anything else on the finance report?
Not on the finance report. Do you want me to switch to budget?
Yeah, please do.
Okay, so you all have a proposed 2022 budget in front of you. I do want to walk through this a little bit. As you said, Jan, our numbers stay the same from last year in the finalized state budget, which is, you know, on paper, we look like we have about $1 million and 50,000 in our special revenue. We are still subject to cash dealings of 954 and 32. We took a close look at our salary lines for this upcoming year, and it's really hard. It's hard to know exactly where things are going to go. You'll recall that all of our salary increases, steps, and cost of living adjustments were frozen at the beginning of COVID. So we've all went a whole budget year without staff increases. We hear that those are now going to move forward as the new budget has been approved. So that's good news for staff. And I think that we might actually get a budget bulletin on that this week from what I read, but that means that money is going to come out of this fiscal year because we're now in the new fiscal year, which just creates a hole to begin with. You know, we're absorbing costs in this fiscal year that really should have come out of last fiscal years. And so we don't,
Right.
So it's hard to get a handle on all that, but assuming some things with Jean's retirement, the NOCOG circuit rider hire and a director hire sometime in the fiscal year, our estimates on salary are about $911,000, which is the bulk, obviously, of our expenses. And then we'll go through, I'm not going to go line by line, just, you know, we've got, again, still with COVID, but, you know, there's some things in the office we could really use an intern for, including our scanning project. So we did allocate a little bit there. You'll see our cloud computing internet line is quite high. And that comes over from last year. Everything has gone to the cloud. All of our software is cloud, Zoom's cloud, Microsoft is cloud. So other lines have went down, but our cloud computing line has went up. And you know, we really need all those things to function well and do what we need to do. Our equipment lease copiers line has gone down. We didn't use our copiers obviously very much last year, so the lease payment has come down kind of relative to that. So we'll save a little bit this year. We built in money again for LGC. We're hoping, because remember that would be at the end of this upcoming fiscal year. We're hoping for an LGC. Now, whether that happens or not remains to be seen, but we're being optimistic and putting that in the budget. We put a little bit in lease improvements if we are able to get back in and finish off the painting and the carpet replacement that we were doing in previous years. It'd be nice to finish off the office. They've been doing actually a lot of improvements in the building. While people haven't been there, there's been a lot of painting in the entire building, like in the public spaces going on. It actually looks quite nice. We've built back in some memberships. We've built back in some printing. If budget allows us to do printing again this year, we really need to print our new regional map, as well as hopefully an annual meeting invite, hopefully Headwaters. Headwaters was only digital this year, but it is really nice to have printed copies to hand out to people. The research and analysis line, we committed to supporting the snowmobile economic impact study this last fiscal year. I think it's great when we can do things like that, and I've allocated $10,000 to some kind of additional regional analysis for this upcoming year. Not sure what that would look like yet, but I think that it gives us some value, and it gives us something that we can really work with, not always depending on our partners to put up the money for everything. So our software maintenance and support, you'll see, is down to 0. We've ended our ESRI or GIS subscription since we've switched entirely to QGIS for our software or GIS mapping needs. So that's saved a little funding there. We've put money back in training. We didn't spend a lot in training last year. We're hoping that we can get out to conferences and that kind of thing this coming year. And certainly with a new hire with John, he's going to need some training. He's going to need to go to association towns, to NICOM, really get that basic information so he can do a good job with his circuit riding. We've bumped up our commissioner's travel again, back to hopefully closer to a normal level since we're doing some in-person meetings. We've that computer equipment line back up to 10,000, knowing that we have some needs there. Postage is real low. We eliminated the postage machine at the beginning of COVID. We haven't missed it. We're doing so much more electronically, and we actually purchased a lot of actual stamps at that time. We had money on an account we had to use up, so we're in good shape for postage. So you'll see we have a total in our allocated non-personal services of 97,000 and change, with about $17,000 unallocated towards the bottom. So we've kind of left that without it being in a specific line at this point, and we'll see how things unfold throughout the year and ask for that to be allocated as necessary. We may end up needing to use some of that for salary costs, honestly, especially with this catch up, this catching up from last year. And then if everything goes through this year, we're going to be in a little crunch with salaries possibly, but that's all good. Staff deserves it, and it's out of our control. So any questions? So Jim, I would like a approval on that budget if possible.
Very good.
Mike just made a motion to approve it.
I second.
Second?
Leona.
All those in favor?
Leona. Aye.
Aye.
Good. Thank you. Thank you, Katie. Just a couple of dates to keep in mind.
Jerry
for
just
the,
asked a question if we're going to hear.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Jerry asked a question if we're going to hear from the other COGs. I didn't have everybody on the schedule this year, but if you are this,
No, I don't have any.
Okay, no. Since we're getting back to normal, I was just doing the COG that we're kind of in. So, but I'm sure Jean would be happy to answer any no-COG questions you might have.
Well, just has there been any word about the circuit rider appointment? Anything?
So you
additional?
missed that because I just had started into my executive director report. So with Jean's retirement being announced, that gave me a little bit more leverage to go to Albany and say, hey, I need this now. And so there has been some movement. He has filled out his background check. I've heard that he's on a list for this week to get some kind of approval. So I've been keeping him in the loop. Told him, don't give your 2-week notice quite yet, because I don't want to, no, until it's a for sure thing. So we're hoping it's positive. We're hoping he might come to our circuit rider director meeting at the end of the month, even if he's not on payroll, just to kind of start to get in the loop.
So through the library world, I found out that we have in the state budget, library funding, and included in that is a digital inclusion grant. And so that will help, I think, with some of this broadband stuff. They're working on mine at the library in Osceola.
What does that mean, digital inclusion?
It's like $15 million or 15, I don't know how many, but it's, it's set aside for digital stuff.
Okay.
So that's good. And the other thing that we learned was that there will be bullet aid this year.
What's that mean?
Bullet aid, like from
line item, kind of?
From Griffo or from the senator's offices or the assemblyman's offices. So
what is bullet aid for?
It's for
projects.
Pork barrel.
Oh, wow. Oh, okay. That's what I heard.
Thanks, Lee.
Good.
I thought, call it what it is.
Sorry.
Of course, I'm going for some.
Yeah.
Well, good. I just, if you could, just a couple of dates for members to keep in mind. On May 15th, your financial disclosures through J Copes are due. So I hope you have the opportunity to go online and get that taken care of prior to May 15th. And as also, before we started the meeting, as Katie had mentioned, June 1st is going to be an important date for the members. If you could, and you're talking to your communities, just keep in mind that the community program is going to be the community recognition program. All entries for that is due on June 1st. So when you're talking to your communities, make sure that there's some sponsors and there's some recommendations there. Any other comments? And Katie, you're going to have to help me with this because I can't see anybody and I can barely hear anybody. So if you could, if there's any public comments.
Doesn't look like it. Oh, Angie's got something.
Just a quick thing. My CTHC executive committee met the end of last week and they have decided not to do a spring meeting, but are hoping for fall. So just an FYI to the commissioners, no spring meeting for CTHC.
Okay.
Mike's upset about missing another good dinner.
Roger said since we haven't had dinner in a year and a half, we ought to be able to go someplace really expensive in the fall.
Were you guys talking about tailwater?
Tailwater, yeah, tailwater, because they've got some big space and we haven't spent any money on dinner in a year and a half.
Well, hopefully if you have it there, people will still want to come to the commission's annual meeting, which is also planned to be at the tailwater in October.
I have one comment too. When you mentioned tailwater, tailwater is in the process of building another 3-story section. This is set up mainly for weddings. So these are going to be suites, not just rooms, but suites of 4 or 5 person suite. And it's going to be like 21 of them or something like that. A good 3-story building. It's going to be connected to where we normally when we had the last dinner and the back wing, it's going to be connected to that section of the structure.
Nice.
So it just got the funding, I think, approved through the IDA and Oswego.
Great.
Angie, this is Jerry. A question, what's going on with the building in Turin that burned?
Their county was already talking to the town and village about possibly taking it through eminent domain so they could take it down because it was falling down before the fire.
Yes.
So I think those plans are gonna speed up.
Okay.
That's the county's plan at this point. They've already put some money aside. They were taking some bids for people to look at what the demolition cost was going to be anyway, asbestos surveys and all that. So I think the fire has definitely put a point on it that that's going to happen.
Have they determined a cause?
Not that I've heard. It's suspicious is all I've heard. So I don't know if they've determined a cause or not.
Yeah.
Like I heard.
At the end of a minute.
I know the town and village will be very happy to get it out of there before it falls on somebody's head that's parked in the municipal building.
Yeah. Any other comments or questions? Not hearing any. I guess, God willing, we'll all be together on May 17th in Port Leyden. And that is at the community room at the fire hall. I believe that's correct.
Correct.
Okay, good. With that, if there's no other business, then I make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jan.
Bye, everyone.
Yep.
So long, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Get that line up.
Yeah.